are today to meet up with Vodafone and IBM, talking about business technology. In particular, we are talking today about a project of infrastructure migration, very, very complex and really very important for Vodafone. We are talking about database migration of Vodafone Italy. And here we are with the main actors of this important project. On my right side, we are Nikos Angelopoulos. Nikos is a Vodafone Hub CIO, and it is responsible for the transformation of the IT landscape in terms of process, organizations, and systems. Then here we are with Antonio Merghetti, and Antonio is head of data center operation, Vodafone Technology Information Services. He's responsible for the operations of the Vodafone European data centers, a very, very big area. And here we are also with Maria Teresa Casati, client executive IBM Italia, who is following the project for the IBM, this complex project. We start today, as I told you before, talking about business transformation. And we want to start with a general question, of course, in terms of what about the relationship between IT and business in Vodafone reality. I mean, can you describe Vodafone IT business relationship and what about the IT strategic role for the business from the application side, Nikos, and from also the infrastructure side? Can you answer to me?
Thank you very much. Very glad to be here, and thank you for the opportunity to have this discussion. As you can imagine, information technology, technology as a whole, and also information technology is effectively the business, as I like to say. Without information technology, the business will not be able to operate. And for Vodafone, like in every other telecom service provider, the information technology applications and infrastructure are of cornerstone of the ability of the business to exist and to service its customers in the marketplace. The importance of this is depicted in the very, very big amounts of money that companies like Vodafone actually commit to invest, even in these difficult times of economic crisis, and continuously strive to improve both the functionality, but also the availability and the performance of these systems in light of the very big demands of our customers. More and more of our customers are serving themselves through the online channel. More and more are dealing with complex products, and they are not very patient when they are in a store. They need to be served very quickly. And the ability of the systems from an application perspective and infrastructure perspective to serve the customers very quickly is extremely important for the success of the company. And that's why Vodafone, recognizing that, have been very, very focused on specializing our ability to deliver functionality from an application perspective, as well as excellence from an infrastructure perspective. And that's why, from an organizational point of view, we have very dedicated units, like the IT departments of the operating companies, like Vodafone Italy, which I'm heading in Italy and South Europe. And at the same time, we have infrastructure operations, infrastructure development and operations for all of our Vodafone entities. Very specialist service provided by Antonio and his colleagues.
Antonio, what is your perspective?
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, everyone. So really happy to be here as well. Yeah, my role is a bit different from Nikos' one. I'm providing service to all the local market of Vodafone, and Nikos is just one of them. It's pretty much challenging role because, as Nikos explained, they are investing a lot of money from their side in developing new application, addressing all the new customer needs. And from infrastructure perspective, we have to provide them with the best solution, best architecture to be able to support properly their business. So then my role is mainly to provide them with this infrastructure and then to operate in this particular project. So then we work very close, to have this migration successful.
I'm very curious to know, because here we are talking first of all about business and IT relationship. Which kind of relationship there are in terms of process organization, collaboration between your different organization and the relationship with the business other side in terms of line of business and so on?
Basically, I am saving Antonio from having to face the business. So the organizational role is very, very simple, especially effectively all the business requirements, needs, future plans are coming into the development and organization in the country, like myself, and we then translate this business strategy and the business needs into applications and infrastructure requirements that we deliver to Antonio's team. So we articulate the IT strategy and the application strategy. We design projects to develop things, and in order to implement these things, we need the infrastructure, and Antonio is providing the best infrastructure possible from architectural point of view, from actual components that they select, from a delivery of these components in the centralized data centers, and also from then operating this infrastructure after things are in production on our behalf. So I have a very easy job. I don't have to deal with infrastructure. Antonio is delivering a great service for us.
Yeah, I know.
So they are blaming me if something is not working. Basically, the added value we are providing is that on a central base we have this standardization in terms of architecture solution that could be provided to Nikos as well as the other CIO in the different local markets. So then this is my role, collecting the requirement, translating them into architectural solution, and then operating as soon as we are in production.
Another curiosity, Nico, are you able to be, for example, proactive towards the business in terms of new project to be able to develop or to improve the business goals and so on? I mean, IT is first of all reactive in terms of business scenario and business strategies, or the IT managing a lot of very, very high performance technologies can be proactive in terms of new ideas, new projects to be able to propose to the market?
Well, I believe we have a healthy balance. So on one point of view, of course, the business is the right entity in order to identify from a business strategy point of view what they want to achieve, what they want to do going forward, what kind of capabilities they need to deliver to match the customer needs in the marketplace. So a very big amount of the demand actually originates from the business side. In a lot of times, in order to actually crystallize this demand and make it more doable and realistic, we have a very collaborative approach, especially in Vodafone Italy. We pride ourselves for working very closely and very collaboratively with the business. Our product development process is really blueprint and collaboration based, rather than the business in isolation drafting things that we receive 1 month later and claim that they are not possible to deliver. So we are very, very much in collaboration. Most times the business comes up with most ideas, and in a number of occasions we come up with ideas, and some of them are infrastructure capabilities, like things like how can we use cloud services to help the business and help the demand and help the peak times in customer usage. We, together with the infrastructure team of Antonio, we've done a couple of really big things in the last year that even our colleagues in the group have been looking at in how to use cloud to match demand. And also in a number of occasions we come up with technical projects that actually make a difference to the way we serve the customer, whether that is in the mediation or the provisioning or in the way we manage campaigns. There is always ideas that come up from us and the business is receiving them and then process them for their own benefit. So I'm very, very happy that I can say that Vodafone as a whole, not only Vodafone Italy, but Vodafone as a whole is in the maturity curve, if you want, is in the collaboration phase, not in the master-slave phase.
I know. Okay. Now, can we focus about the migration project? What about in terms of the first decision or the first idea about the migration project from the business side, the business needs, and of course the technology and performance needs?
Well, I would say that this project is probably one of the projects that initiated from the technology side of things, and the real drivers behind the project was that we projected, we estimated, we really believed that the customer demand for number of transactions between the customers and our systems as time was passing by was going to go higher and higher. So despite the economic crisis, the number of interactions that we have with our customers is increasing due to number of offers available, due to promotions, due to customers using more the online channel instead of other traditional channels, and therefore interacting on a try basis with our system. So overall, the demand from the end community to our systems was going to go was going to increase. And in addition to that, the availability of the systems is becoming more and more important and becomes more and more demanding. Whereas 5 years ago or 10 years ago, one would say that overnight is a quiet period, or that a migration of a system during Saturday to Sunday is a good idea. What we have observed and what we know is that this is a very bad idea now, because the great number of users on the online systems is actually during Saturday night or Sunday night, on Sunday day. You see that people with the proliferation of smartphones and tablets and other personal devices, they find time to interact with our systems at times that we would call down times in the past. So in order to be able to serve these customers at 1 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, right, or Saturday night, we have to have less and less down times in our systems. So the maintenance windows have to be less and less. The time it takes to complete a billing cycle, for example, and therefore the unavailability of information has to become less and less. And overall, we had a big belief, a real belief that we had to improve the infrastructure in order to make the systems more available, faster, and able to have higher capacity to serve an increasing demand from our customer base.
Antonio, what consideration in terms of infrastructure's point of view with this project? When you are engaged in this project, you need to think about the migration infrastructure point of view. What about that?
Yeah, basically what Nikos just said was the set of information on which we based the whole analysis. So then Nikos people basically share with us all the expected increase in terms of load of the system itself, and then making simple projection. It was clear that, at a certain point the system, the service itself should be in trouble. Those were a kind of starting point. Then analyzing the requirement, basically we did evaluate the best solution, several solutions to tell you the truth on the market, and then we identified this one as the best solution to address mainly, potential computing power issue, I/O issue, or whatever else that, the increasing load could generate on the environments. It was not just a simple, choose or pick up of one solution from the market. It was a bit more complex because we had to integrate the solution with not just the computing power, but also the storage solution, the number of I/O, the kind of connectivities, and then the migration constraints. So this was basically the analysis we went through.
Good. Maria Teresa, and what about your consideration the first consideration in this complex project of migration in a big customer like Vodafone?
Yes, the first point was to solve an infrastructure request from the customer, so put on the table the best technology we have, and then evaluate what does an infrastructure replacement mean. So try to put around the table and work with Vodafone team, Nikos team and Antonio teams with the best of IBM. So my objective was to ask to a lot of division in IBM to be ready to evaluate the infrastructure impact of a migration from another technology to an IBM technology, the infrastructure and technology services we have to put in place, and the objectives, one of the objectives was to increase the performance. So we have to simulate and put on the table all the tests in order to be sure that the performance target has to be reached. So this was the second point. And third, but not less important, the most important was the application side. We manage the application development and maintenance for Vodafone Italy, so we work with the Nikos team on that. So we have to be very careful in guarantee to Vodafone that after an infrastructure migration, all the application that interact with this database has to work well as in the past. So functionality has to be guaranteed, performance has to be improved, and at the very end, the heterogeneous infrastructure environment running today in Vodafone has to be perfect, working perfectly. And overall, the downtime in order to manage all this activity has to be less as much as possible. So the minimum in order to reduce as much as possible the unavailability of services during the migration. So to do this, we have to coordinate a lot of teams in IBM, not only locally, but also international teams like the migration factory team that is a team dedicated to migrate from a technology to another, the alliances team in order to keep the laboratories of IBM and of other suppliers that has some infrastructure running in Vodafone today, work together in order to test all the heterogeneous compatibility of the infrastructure, and then the team in hardware and services department in IBM.
Maria Teresa, I stop you because I want to go more in depth after with this kind of sharing integration project between these three very important entities. Nico, but can you briefly describe me the principal steps of this project in terms of migration steps? What are the main critical aspects you need to face during this complex migration?
Well, this migration is probably the largest infrastructure project that we have done, certainly for Vodafone Italy for the recent years. I assume one of the biggest for Vodafone as a whole. And we have to keep in mind that we're talking about probably the most important and the most sensitive application that we have in Vodafone Italy for our customers. And therefore, no errors are allowed. There is no luxury for anything to go wrong. As a result of that, clearly we had to be extremely careful with the migration from a data point of view and from a systems point of view, availability and performance going forward. So in a way, I was responsible for the data and application part of the project to ensure that the application is working properly after the migration, that all the processing of customer information is as expected for all functionality, and given the importance of this system, and if you think that this system is connected to probably something in the order of 200 other applications on the perimeter, you can imagine the size and the complexity of the undertaking to ensure that. And from another point of view, from an infrastructure point of view, Antonio had a very, very tough job to make sure that the data were migrated completely, that all the connectivity, all the availability, the reliability, the redundancy, blah, 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 all of these things have been correctly done.
Yeah?
Antonio?
Yeah, from my side,
The critical points also?
critical points, several critical points. Now they are over.
Yes, so we're like it, yeah. So that's why we're here, right?
So then the most critical point we didn't mention was that, you know, we were expected to go through this infrastructure migration, but we couldn't migrate the database itself. So then the release of the database should be the same. That was a kind of constraint we had initially, which was in some way, you know, creating some constraint to the migration itself. Then the complexity of the migration was to ensure the complete transfer of the data from the old database instance into the new one, into the new platform. This has to happen in a very, very short time frame because the entire migration procedure is covering not just the migration step, but also the, in case of no-go decision, the rollback procedure. And from the business perspective, the time window we had was very, very short. So then basically we had one night overall. And then...
well, it was what I like to call a big bang.
A big bang, yeah, I can imagine.
No staging.
Yeah,
Big bang.
to tell you the truth, so then we had we put in place a solution that would allow us to keep the data up to date also on the original database as soon as we were migrating, and also after migrating the data. We kept the data up to date for several days. That was we put in place to save the migration itself. We went through several tests before migrating, because again we did try the complete migration and then the rollback procedure that was successful. During the real migration time, we didn't have the need to roll back, so then we have been able to manage the whole migration one shot. That was the most complex part. So then, and then you know, within the time window, we should then hand over back to IBM and the Nikos people to assure all the business tests were completed on time. So that was the most complex activity we went through.
What about the total time of the migration project?
The project itself?
Yeah.
Yeah. Project itself
Over 1 year?
was...
Yes, the real migration, the activity for the real migration was 6, 7, 8 months. We started to analyze the infrastructure and environment more or less a year before the migration, yes. Yeah.
Okay, and Nico, in terms of results, performance and so on, we started talking about business perspective and technology perspective. From a technology perspective, if you want, tell us what about in terms of better performance, better times and so on after this migration project. But also in terms of business perspective, what is your opinion in terms of a new quality of services to end user or the customer? Can you describe the advantages of this migration project? Tangible.
Yes, I think I can summarize this, the results of this project in a cliché expression, which is no news is good news. What I can tell you is that we have really observed in the last 3-4 months a very significant increase of our transactions, interactions with our customers, in the order of, in some cases, in some time windows of more than 30 to 40% compared to last year. And despite this very significant increase in volume, nobody has called me. So, which is the best thing about my job is, you know, if nobody calls me, I know it's the best situation to be in. So, clearly it was very well timed. So the project itself was well considered at the right time for the investment. The demand on the system actually did materialize. It came, it became reality. It was not just a forecast that was wrong, it was actually real. And we had the luxury of having a very quiet summer from our point of view, because despite a very, very high increase in our volume of transactions, nobody called us from holiday, and we enjoyed our break.
It's a great result.
Absolutely. I mean, in some cases, I believe we exceeded 2 million transactions per minute.
Yeah.
So that is a very material volume of transactions to serve customers and be able to deliver without anybody noticing any issues. So I think everybody is happy from the point of view that nobody observed any constraint from a technology perspective to drive to the market the promotions, the changes of tariff plans, the campaigns, and all the things that they do. Yeah. And technology is there transparently to serve the customers and deliver to them what we promise.
Good. Now, the last question, but I think is one of the most important questions for this project. I want to know, what about in terms of relationship between these three different entities during this project? Because I think it's very important to be prepared from a business, but also from application side, from your perspective, the architecture from the other, your relationship and the relationship with IBM, who is a lot of division involved in this kind of project. What about in terms of collaboration methods, process, organization, time frames, and so on? Nico, from your perspective.
Well, I can start. I mean, Vodafone and IBM are, very strategic partners. We have a very, very big amount of work we do together. We are collaborating in the application space for a number of years through strategic relationship.
But what happens when there is an alarm, a dangerous situation? What happens?
We call them.
You call them?
No, we have a very close relationship. I mean, the very, very many and very senior people of IBM are very close and very connected to myself and other Vodafone colleagues at all levels of the hierarchy and the organization. So the relationship is very, very closely knit. In most occasions, things are quite mature and quite straightforward in how we operate. Sometimes, like in this project, it was a bit of a new territory with regards to the very many different entities that were involved. And originally, at the beginning of the project, the approach followed was pretty much like a hardware infrastructure service delivered to Vodafone. IBM, like Vodafone, we are both very complex organizations, so sometimes we have to navigate through our own initiative. And one of the things we discovered and we realized is that, well, the infrastructure project cannot be successful if the application is not assured, like Maria Teresa said at the beginning. And then we start, walking on each other's toes between one contract about the application, another contract about the infrastructure, and we quickly had to get together and work out how we manage this, because at the end of the day, the customer would only accept a solution working, okay? I would only accept an infrastructure if the application was correct, and there is no way to have an infrastructure project successful if the application is not assured. Sure. And I have to say that very, very quickly we all recognize this, and the IBM colleagues have changed the approach, amended the approach in order to treat this project as a total project of development and infrastructure, and then we run it this way very, very successfully. I have to say that, as Antonio said before, the migration was very important, the transition was very important, it was a big bang, and we would not be able to tolerate any mistakes. So to start with, we were not successful the first time around. We actually tried once, and we recognized that it was not at the level of completeness we wanted to actually go live with this, and we collectively decided to stop, take another week, 2 weeks, and then try again. And then this was a very clear indication that everybody was working with the same objective. And the objective is that when we go live, the customer, or my mother, as I like to say, when she's sitting in front of her PC, then she can do things and nobody will notice anything. Yeah. And this is the only thing that counts. We were all on the same mentality, and we finished the project very, very quickly. So I think we were able to work together very, very well, recognize a weakness in the structure at the beginning, and address it very quickly to the success of the project, and everybody was very happy. That's reality.
Good. Antonio, from your experience in this project?
Yeah, from my experience, as Nikos explained, basically all the people involved, from Nikos' side, from my side, and from IBM, did work as a unique team. So there was a kind of unique migration team. The objective was to migrate the database full stop, nothing in addition to that. So then everyone was contributing in a very active way. Everyone was fully aware about what to do, what were the expected deliverable. And my feeling, especially at the end, when the migration itself was achieving a good level of maturity, so then my people were dealing with IBM as if they were real colleagues. So that was the spirit that was aiming the entire program. That was good from the human perspective, so organization was working pretty much well. And then also from the, let's say, skill level, from the contribution we had from the expert center was really good. So then, as Nikos explained, we did fail once. But, you know, just to be clear, what happened at that time was not difficult to happen. Something, I would say, it happened one time over several million times. So then this is what really happened. It was pretty much strange, too technical to explain here issue. But then, you know, when we discovered that issue, we had engagement from the labs and so on. They provided us with an explanation. And for that reason, mostly because it was very clear what happened and what to do to recover, we did schedule the second migration that happened after a few weeks. That was my view. So very, very collaborative and positive.
Okay, Antonio. Maria Teresa, it has been very difficult to manage Vodafone customer in terms of particular situation in this migration project, and also to manage the IBM groups, because I think it's very different entities involved in this, as you told me before.
Yes, the coordination was the most critical part, even if Vodafone has to run the business in the meantime. So we have to guarantee that the business proceed as business as usual every day, and in the meantime make a lot of tests, functional tests, create environment in parallel in order to keep the team on this project going ahead with the activity. And you know that all the team in Vodafone, in Nikos' organization, they run operation of application, they have to design new projects, so they are very busy and they have a scheduling of activity every day. And also in Antonio organization, the same. So keeping all the team focused on the project and maintaining the business as usual up and running was the difficult part. But at the very end, we discovered that it was a pleasure to coordinate and work together, and in particular, asking also to the teams in IBM, international organization, to participate and to provide the skills and the competencies needed. And this was something that was really appreciated also by Antonio and Nikos. So at the very end, the system integration and having the right people around the table working in the right time around the project was the key element. And another point that I want to mention, that Nikos already speak about the results, is that we now, as an IT partner of customer, are working in the way in which after a project we want to come back, and this is probably the reason because we are also here, come back and see if the results are really reached. and measure the performances in this case, or the business results, in order to understand if we succeed and if for the future we can go ahead in the same way in terms of project organization, but the most important part is the real results, that is the business. So how the IT can improve the business, and let's see and measure the results.
Thank you, Maria Teresa. Thank you, Antonio. Thank you, Nico, for your time. Good job, and stay with us.